So we see this, and all this information goes into a Cognos-based tool where we have an algorithm underneath this that's doing this impact likelihood. I won't show you all the math here, but the impact likelihood weighing factor to determine the level of risk. Now here, I'm just going to show you here at the bottom, we need to look at more than just the supplier and the supply chain. We need to look at things affecting the supply chain. So are you familiar with rare earth metals? You are, right? You are, okay. There's 17 of them. Who has all the rare earth metals? China, right? They have 97% or whatever the number is. You know where there's a large supply of rare earth metals? In Afghanistan. But there are no companies rushing out to develop mining facilities in Afghanistan. So they might be distributed around the world, but China has them. They have the refining and so forth. Now that goes into all the military use around the world. It goes into high tech. And we're dependent upon those 17 in virtually all our products, right, due to the characteristics. So, once there's, what China was doing, if you realize this, they were increasing their quotas as far as, or reducing their quotas. They were increasing the price, and they were controlling from the mining to the refining and so forth. And the United States had a mine, and they had this, and they gave it up. It was too expensive. So the invisible hand got in there and said, we don't need to do it. Let somebody else do it. And in the meantime, that mine was closed in Mountain Pass, California. There was one in Australia that I think has been reopened. So the world has let themselves kind of be in a very precarious position. I even had a meeting with the U.S. Commerce Department and the Secretary of Commerce to describe our position as a major corporation on rare earth metals and how we'd like the U.S. government to be more active. Well, what's the situation now? Because of a monopoly like that, there's been substitution. There's been reduced use, right? And China can't give it away, right, of what they have. So the prices have gone down, but I'm sure it's not going to stay that way. But something like this, if you're not watching this on pricing or supply, you can really be surprised. And conflict minerals, not those people I was talking to last night. So conflict minerals, what are they? Minerals that are conflicting with each other. It's tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's a big issue in the United States. It's a big issue in Europe. Is passing some very, very tough laws coming on here. So every company that's publicly traded in the United States needs to show a chain of custody of where they're getting their tin, tungsten, tantalum, and gold. So we have to go back 10 levels to the smelter in Indonesia that's doing this. Where are they getting it? Are they getting it from a rogue mine or a good mine in the Democratic Republic of Congo or the 9 countries surrounding it? So let me just ask, anybody involved in conflict minerals? On the good side, that you're, okay. So this has put a lot of pressure on the supply chain. I mean, as far as the things that we're doing. But I want to know, through social listening, the smallest change there. I want to know exactly what's happening on these subjects, way in addition. Because what will happen, I'll give you an example on rare earth metals. If you go to the first tier supplier and say, you having any trouble with rare earth metals? What do they know? It's 4 levels down. They don't know, right? All they know is the last delivery looked okay. You go to the second guy, he said, I don't know. You really need to go to the guy who's mining it or smelting it or refining it. They'll know, right, whether it's restricted. But that information is not necessarily transparent, very difficult to get. So social listening can help. Okay, this is it. This is the guts. So we've simplified this just for the general audience here. So what we have here is in the center, a tool based on Cognos platform. And we feed this, I'm just going to show you with information. Okay, we have different people and different tools or coming in answering questions about the supplier site, about the countries, about the regions, about the hubs and so forth, and we put all that information into a tool. Now, some of the countries, like maybe the United States and Russia and China and so forth, Mexico, they're big countries. So what's happening, say, on the Baja coast of Mexico in one place, you may say, well, there's an earthquake there. Well, that might be unfortunate for the people living there, but we don't have any suppliers there. So you need to know where your supply base is around the world so that you can make an intelligent decision. Because with all the information coming in, we could overstimulate the buyers. Every day we could give them a list of all the things that are going on, the weather patterns, climatic and so forth. And at the end of the day, they didn't play out, right? They're not affecting where we have our supplier base and so forth. So an intelligent screening of that information is essential to pinpoint where you want to take action and when you want to take action. Now over here too, we feed this information with our supply chain social responsibility audits. So if someone is using, I'm going to give you an example, child labor or forced labor, or they locked the doors or they didn't have the sprinkler system, will that stop a shipment tomorrow? It won't. But over time, that's probably a supplier that you don't want to use. So that's kind of a latent risk there but you need to know that. Business continuity, suppliers that maybe they have great delivery on everything, great pricing. What if they have high absenteeism? What if they have a power outage? Do they know what to do? You hope so, but you know what we found? Many of suppliers haven't thought about that. So we're trying to help them think about that, not just for us, but for their own business and all their own clients. So that's another thing that we're investigating and actually working with our suppliers to ensure they have a solid resiliency plan that will keep their business going. And we give them some view of what we would expect and share with them what we're doing ourselves. Financial risk, we've developed a tool internally that it does use D&B and Fitch and Standard & Poor and so forth, but we actually have an algorithm that gives us 7 levels of risk associated with a supplier. Now, do we want to do business with a high-risk supplier? Maybe. Sometimes, now you might say, well, why? Sometimes on the production side, they have a microcode interface. They're the only one. It might be an OEM part, that we didn't design, that we need that function, and they're the only one. So maybe you want to take a risk here. So, Born, how much time do I have here? 7 minutes? Okay. All right. I won't talk any faster than I've been talking. Okay, I'll just... So this is our tool here, and the output is there over there. So we have a tool that you can go into the database and you can look at, show me all my high-risk suppliers, show me all my high-risk suppliers in China, show me all my high-risk suppliers with this condition. So it's almost you can dial this and see what the situation is. Okay. This actually is picture this as a X, Y, and Z. So wherever there's a check, there's a Z dimension, and there's dozens of questions that we have designed that need to be answered that go into the tool. So wherever there's an intersect, there's a specific question set that help us define that. Okay. This is, there's many cuts of this data, so if you were looking here, you might look at countries, it could be commodities, it could be whatever. And if you put your cursor on the real tool, it will light up what supplier that is or country, and it also will tell you what it is. It will say they are single sourced and they are also financially distressed. So you'll get all the dimensions there. It's not just telling you that you got a problem, but it will tell you to what degree you have and why. Let me quickly tell you about Tsunami. So when March 11th hit, we have 70 suppliers in Japan. We didn't know that, right? Now, somebody knows that. We just didn't know that instantly. So the first question the CPO is going to ask is, how many suppliers, where are they, and what do they make for us? And then, well, we don't know. But the tool knew. We didn't even know that the tool knew. Because the way we populated the tool, we were able to query it immediately and not wait for the different category managers to give us that information. By having that information, we were able to get out there, get to these suppliers, understand their business, were their factories down, would they come up, do they have alternate source, could they move the business to Taiwan? We were able to do that within 24 hours. And I will tell you the proof of this is that, yes, we did have part shortages, but we did not lose and we did not move out any lead time, nor did we miss any shipments. So we managed this thing very tightly in a huge war room. We actually ran a war room day and night for a period of time, and then within a few weeks, a few months, we actually went back to a normal situation. And Japan, amazing as they are, by June, there was a degree of semblance of recovery. So a great story here, but this is know the information, because many of our clients and our competitors are using the same suppliers. But there's no rule that they have to save and divvy out, a third for you and a third for you. It's who gets there first and who has a good relationship. So this was our tool, our process. This was a turning point in our culture. When this happened, all the people who didn't like this wanted to get on board, because the people who were on board, the suppliers and the buyers, had lots of information and could do a much better job than their brethren who were behind. Okay, some other things we have here. We've done a little bit more esoteric things. Soil erosion. We looked at weather patterns. When we looked at the floods, in 5 minutes? Okay. When we looked at November, you know what happened in November 2011? It was the Thailand floods. Do you remember that? Devastated the hard drive business. 50% of all the hard drives in everybody's computers made in Thailand, and all the actuators, the heads, the platters, and so forth. we could be out of business. So again, using this information was very, very helpful. But you know, what we were asked is, do we have supplier clusters? I hadn't looked at that, but we looked around the world and there are 5 regions that we have a heavy concentration of suppliers. By knowing that, and we actually work with research, we looked at a flood modeling tool. What's going to happen in 50 years, 100 years? What changes have taken place in the terrain? And we've actually analyzed all this. So we actually use this flood modeling tool to determine the degree of frequency of a flood and what's the impact and what's the likelihood. Just some factoids there about how, you know, I'm sure your business is as complex as ours, but it's not like we just buy something from one supplier. There's a whole set of networks and different type of combinations. This could go on and on and on and on. We have lists of virtually everything that's ever happened here, and no 2 things ever happen the same again. Okay. Now, what we've done here is we've built a transparent supply chain control tower. So this is not vaporware, a chart where we really do this. So we're looking at, if you place an order with us, what's your order for a Z machine, a P machine? Is it made in Mexico? Is it made in Poughkeepsie, New York? Is it, you know, how far along is it made? So we're looking at all this. We're also looking at the supplier information. So my risk tool feeds into this much larger piece of work here. So this is something that the supply chain executives and others in the corporation can look at, and they can query your order to where it is. Is it delayed? What about the parts coming in? So all this information is online. It's a web-based tool. What I do is I populate a geospatial map. So I have information coming in from real-time alerts, and it lights up on this geospatial map real-time. And if you hover over this with your cursor, it will tell you that, you know, there's a flood or whatever instance is. The thing is, because it's real-time, what do you think they ask me? What's the impact? I don't know. I just put it up there. So, you know, I have to disclaim that, you know, under investigation, or we're looking at this now. So we're able to do this every day. And this just happened to be a screenshot, but this is going on as we speak here. Okay. I'm going to skip over. Just to quickly tell you, you've heard about Watson. If anybody's seen that in Jeopardy, we're actually using Watson here in a proof of concept of typhoons. So we actually did this just very recently here. We want to know the pattern that we see. We know if it's landfall, if it's Category 5 now and it hits land at Category 4 in the Philippines, we're going to have trouble. So we have enough historical information and rules of thumb. So we actually fed this into Watson Content Analyzer, and we've developed a predictive tool here that will tell us what's the impact in various parts of Southeast Asia on our supply base. So we know where it is, and we're able to look at those weather patterns there. And we tend to extend this to political, social, and other things here. Okay. There it is. Those are the key takeaways. So don't be afraid of risk. Uncover it. Make sure you're examining it. You know, test it out. Have some type of tools, have some type of data, some type of analytics, have a team in place, and then have a next best action. Thank you very much, folks.